Just introducing Richard Perry, who's going to be talking about a Bible overview. He's going to be giving you an introduction to using accordance to look at the New Testament books and the Old Testament books as well. So I'm looking forward to this. If you have any questions as this session goes on, feel free to write them in the question slot. I'll try to answer as many as I can, and then the ones I can't, or the ones that I think Richard needs to answer himself, I'll save those, and at the end of the class, we'll ask him those questions. So I'm looking forward to this time with Richard. So take it away, Richard.
Okay, well, welcome all. It's great to be with you. It's an honor to be with you. I know we have people from around the globe, some getting up very early in the morning, some staying up very late at night, and we appreciate you all. We all join hands together and pray for our world at this point in time. So many things going on. It's amazing, though, that we can all get together via a technology like this so that we can stay in our houses and still fellowship and pray for one another and have fellowship and to learn and to study. So again, I'm very appreciative of you attending this webinar today, and I hope that I can bring something that will enlighten you a bit or just make you smile. So what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn off my camera. We're going to take a look at my screen. Basically, when we look at the books of the Bible, we have sort of like an incredible story, and I'm going to sort of take a look at this like almost like from a detective's perspective. There's so many shows on the television today that are detective stories, and you find these clues, and you who did it and how did it happen. And so we have such an incredible, beautiful book before us, the Hebrew Bible, or some Old Testament for the Christians, but the Hebrew Bible, and then the New Testament, the sequel. The Hebrew Bible takes up 74% of the writings of the scriptures. And so a lot of times for the evangelicals and Protestant arm, we tend to focus a lot on the New Testament, but the Old Testament and the Hebrew Bible is just so rich with so many wonderful things. So my hope is that we get engaged in and longing to study the scriptures from beginning to end. The thing that I also want to bring to your attention is that as we study, this workshop is a very, very basic workshop. It's just to get you engaged, to show you some simple tools that you have under accordance or that you can get with accordance that just helps you to get a good grasp, hopefully, and an overview of each of these wonderful books that we call the Bible. Now, before we look forward, there's a couple things I want to talk about. One thing that is called chronology. And the chronology is when the time or the order that happened in history. And so when we look at especially the Hebrew Bible, when we look at the books in the Hebrew Bible, they're put into divisions. You know, you have the first 5 books, the Pentateuch, which is the law, and then you have historical books, and you have poetry books, and they're all arranged together. Now, they might not have been written during that time, and often with a lot of young people that get involved in the scriptures for the first time, they just think that, well, you have Chronicles, and then you have these people that wrote after Chronicles, and it's sequential. But we got to get into our mindset when we study that really maybe Chronicles was written near the end of the writings of the Old Testament or the Hebrew Bible. And so when were they written? Not just their divisions, but when were they written? And how does that change our perspective as we read through the scriptures? So keep that in mind. Chronology is something we'll want to look at as we go through it. The other thing is that's sort of interesting for the scriptures is that if you are in the way that people look at the canonization or the books that they put together as the complete collection for them, in some respects, the Catholic canon is different than the Eastern Orthodox and the Protestant and Even the Tanakh is arranged differently and for the Jewish readings than it is for what we look at when we look at the Old Testament. But basically, I think that within reason, we can basically say that there are around 39 books, 23 authors plus, and it was written over 1,000+ years. And again, it takes up 74% of our readings in the Holy Scriptures. I put in here, you're going to get this handout, but I put some links in here. If you have these books and you click on these links, they will actually open up for you the book, and it will show you the books of the Bible. It shows you here I can actually make the picture bigger. It shows you the divisions and the New Testament. So a lot of our books in our library have a lot of nice graphics that you can look at to help you understand the divisions, and it's worthwhile to go through them as you're studying. So they're also like the Orthodox Study Bible, one of my favorites, put up by HarperCollins. It actually gives you a comparison list of the Old Testament books listed and compared. Here's your Orthodox, here's your Roman Catholic, and the Protestant, and you can go through and you can see that there are different books that are added or different amounts of books. And so, you know, just be aware that there's some other writings that some people feel that are very important and they would consider them part of their Bible, especially for the Old Testament. MacArthur also goes into some things that I thought were interesting. In his study Bible, he talks about when the prophets were organized by date and direction of ministry, the years that they wrote, who they wrote to: Edom, Judah, 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 Nineveh, Judah, Israel, Babylon, Judah, Judah, Judah. So, you know, something like this is telling me, well, why is Judah so predominant here? So we'll take a look at that. And again, I put some links in there. If you have like the Holman charts or you have these study Bibles, you can automatically open them from this user tool that I created that you'll have access to. And I did the same thing for the New Testament in the books and how they're arranged and how to get to them as well. The other thing would be there are some videos that I thought were interesting, or this is not a video, this is actually a website. The neat thing within Accordance is that when starting with version 12 and now into 13, if you have a web link that you see, you can actually click on it and it will open up within the web browser. So now I've opened up on the browser and I can look at the book and authors of the New Testament. I can look and see what their occupation was and the number of verses and compare what they wrote. And so this is a link that everybody can access under Accordance, and it'll take you to this particular place in your web browser. What we're going to do today is we're going to look at this sort of a brief outline. I always like to use like a hand so you can get a grasp. I have 5 fingers, I have 5 points, so we can get a grasp of doing a quick overview. Now again, I'm not going into big depth. I'm going to be showing you some features and functions within Accordance on how to maybe go about doing an overview. But this is not meant to be an in-depth study or an in-depth training on how to use the program. What I hope to do is to inspire you to get engaged in studying the scriptures and getting excited about them. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to open up an outline. And I think that's one of the best ways to start to get an overview. When I have a class that teaches Old Testament overview, a lot of times people think that when I ask them, tell me about the book of Genesis, they think it's a test. And they start putting things that they remember, but it may not be in the right order. I'm appreciative that they might have the right information, but you know, the order also is very important when you look at the outlines of the Bible. So everybody should have an Accordance. You have a thing called the outline of the books of the Bible. And I'm just going to go up here. This comes in all of our products. I'm just going to start with Genesis. I'm going to go right to the beginning. And the neat thing is when you're going through, you don't have to do this, but you could create a highlight file. I created one, and to create a highlight file, you click on the highlighter, and you can go to the little gear, and then you can say, I want to have a new highlight file. You click on that, it'll say, what do you want to call it? And you can give it a name. I call it Bible Books Overview. And the reason I do that is that then I have this, and you see I have Bible Books Overview, and I have a different legend. I have events and stories and peoples and miracles, just to give you an idea of what you can do. And as you go through, you can say, wow, look, let's take a look. Let's just take a look at Genesis. But before I do, again, I'm going to sort of do this, my wife and I, we watch some TV shows sometimes, and she gets very upset when you see all this action happening, and then it stops and it says 1 week earlier, 5 days earlier. And then now you have to rewind to go back to everything that took place in order to get to that big event. Well, if you look at the very last book in the New Testament, we have a cosmic explosion of things happening, a war in heavens and everything. And wow, it's got imagery and symbols, and it's just an amazing scene. And so you go, wow, how did that happen? Well, 1,400 years earlier, and then we start. So we're going to go back in time now. We have, how did we get to where we're at today? What's going to happen in the future? So we go back to the very start, to the very beginning, to Genesis. Genesis, of course, we're going to find out what the name means, and as we do some study with it. But the very first thing I want to do is look at the outlines. This is so important, but it's so good. The thing about outlines, let me just say this, as we're going through outlines, they tell a story, and I almost think that I could conduct and have a Bible study fellowship, and all we did was look at each week an outline of one of the books of the Bible, so we really get that into our minds. Who were the people involved? What events were happening? What miracles took place? What heroes were there? What villains were there? What miraculous things happened? And there's just so much. It's just every page is just so exciting. And so and we have poetry, we have songs, we have places we can turn to when we're hurting, we have wisdom. There's just so much. We have battles. Again, I'm getting ahead of myself, but just going through the outlines, I get so much of this. So we get down here, we have creation. Well, that's an event that I want to highlight. So I'm going to say creation. And then that's in chapter 1. And then we see a person in chapter 2. We see people starting to come. So we have Adam and Eve, and we have Cain. And you see that you can just go through and highlight, so that as you're going through, you can, and I always think it's good to highlight something because it's drawing your attention to it and it's keeping your focus on it. So we have creation. We have the creation of the world. We have Adam and Eve and the first people, and then their sons. And then we have a story of Noah and the flood, the epic flood. What an incredible story. But guess what? The earth was not totally destroyed. And then we have the story of Noah and his descendants. And we're only up to we're only in 11 chapters. And then we start, this is really remarkable because a lot of people know Genesis by just creation and Adam and Eve and the Tower of Babel and Noah and the flood. But when we get down here, we're only 11 chapters into it, or 12, we get to this person, Abraham. And with Abraham, the rest of Genesis deals with a beginning of a people for God, a nation for God. So 12 chapters deals with the beginning of the world and creation and man, and sin enters the world, and bad division enters the world. And so now we start to see how we got to where we're at today, because sin starts in and it has a thread all throughout the scriptures. And it comes down, but just think, from chapter 12 all the way down to chapter 50, it's the story of Abraham and his descendants, and how it's going to change the world and how it's going to change our lives, and the major people that are involved. Jacob was an amazing man. He was, he becomes Israel. And then we have Joseph. Joseph, what an amazing individual to read about his life. And by the way, when you have just an outline open, you just click on, I'm going to turn this off. you just click on one of the scriptures and you can open up the verse and you can read the story right alongside of the outline. And that's great. So I just spent a little bit of time on Genesis, but let's look at Exodus. Now, in an outline, look at the very first item, because that's sort of almost, not all the time, but that almost tells you what the whole thing's about. The Exodus from Egypt. In the Pentateuch, we're talking about the Egyptian empire ruling the world at the time and enslaving others. And so Israel goes after Joseph into Egypt, and they're there for, we're going to see how many years were they there, and we can take a look and we can read about it. The people suffered, and then we come to this person, Moses. And that's amazing, because in 3, we see stories where Moses, God appears to Moses in a flaming bush and all these things. And then we have the judgments and these plagues. And then we have a miracle, the parting of the Red Sea, and then the bitter waters turning sweet. So again, each outline you can just do a study on and have a remarkable time having people say, what were the miracles that happened here? Who are the main people? What were the main events that were happening? So again, I'm just trying to impress upon you the importance of just one simple tool, outlines. Leviticus, we have 5 burnt offerings, and it's a story of how a holy God and how a people, a sinful, fallen people, can now have a relationship with a holy God. And we get down here, and we also have, not only do we have 5 offerings, but we get down further and we talk about there are a whole listing of feasts. There are 7 feasts that happen, and instructions on how people are to have organization and to live. Numbers, the preparation for the journey from Sinai. And it starts with the census and it ends with the census. But even within the midst of something like numbering, you're going down here and you're seeing rebellion. And then eventually you come to this whole story about Balaam and Balak and a donkey talking and prophecy. Wow, that is just so amazing. All this amazing stories. And then Deuteronomy. Now, if I went back up to Exodus, when was the 10 Commandments written? So we know that we have them here get back up here to Exodus. I think it's Exodus 10, isn't it? The plague, the delivery. I know I'll find it because I'll just go through it. Maybe it's 20. Oh, I should know this by now. So Exodus, instructions regarding the tabernacle, and then we have a lot on covenants. By the way, we start covenants in Genesis, and then we get them here. And for some reason, my mind went into a fog, and I know it's one of these things that says the 10 Commandments, and I wanted to show you that. I heard it's 10 Commandments, chapter 20. That's what I thought. So you can click here, and this is the first time that we see the 10 Commandments, right, in Exodus. But we get down here into Numbers. Watch what happens. We see, or excuse me, in Deuteronomy, we have the first commandment: have no other gods. Love the Lord, follow the Lord, do not forget the Lord, do not boast in your own righteousness, fear the Lord, keep the commandments of the Lord. The second commandment, the third commandment. Do you see how this book actually expands out the 10 commandments of Deuteronomy, given the second time the law with more information that's very helpful? So I don't want to belittle that, but I just want to show you that each opening line in these outlines gives you a wonderful amount of materials. This is a interesting. Joshua is one of my favorite books, and it started the historical books and how the people get into the land. Judges, an amazing look at Judges. How many judges were there? Were the judges good? When the people repented, it says here, Israel's failure to complete the conquest. And then they have a pattern of Israel's apostasy and cycles of apostasy. Did you know that there were 7 cycles of apostasy covering nearly 350 years? And that the people they just went from one thing to another, but they just forgot God. And then they cried out to God. And only in one circumstance do I read, I think in chapter 10 or 13, do the people really say we have sinned? Most of the times they just say we don't like what we're living in, and they cry out to God, and God listens to them, and he delivers them. But they fall right back into it. What a lesson. Ruth, and we learn about Ruth and Samuel, which would be these. I love these historical books, 1st, 2nd Samuel, Kings. What happens at the end of 1st Kings? It's really remarkable. Well, at the end of the 1st Kings, we have in chapter 12 the divided kingdom. And now this is where we see the separation of Judah and Israel. Judah goes to the south, and Israel goes to the north, and they have no good kings. Judah has a few good kings, but we learn about that as we look at these outlines. And how did the kings become kings in Israel? And how did the kings become kings in Judah? It's an amazing story. And so we can just go down and then Chronicles, but then Chronicles is sort of really at the end because it chronicles all that was happening in Judah. And then we get to some of the prophets and the return of the exile. Why was there an exile? Well, we have to go back up and find an exile. What happened? Who took who? Who took Israel? Who took Judah? Who were the Assyrians? Who were the Babylonians? We can learn about that just by clicking on these items and going right to it. And then we have all of these wonderful people. And then if we get down to the New Testament, of course, it's the same thing. Acts, I like Acts, Peter and the gospel. Really, to me, Acts is about the gospel as an evangelical, because we always say, well, it's the Acts of the Apostles, but really it follows the Gospels, and the Gospels were written to a variety of different groups and cultures, the Jews, the Romans, the Greeks, the Gentiles, and then the Gospel follows, and the Gospel is impeded all through the book of Acts, hindrances and obstacles, and yet the New American Standard Bible says, and then Paul was able to preach the gospel and it went forth unhindered. Even in spite of challenges and everything, Acts really shows that the gospel was able to go forth with power unhindered. And so then Romans, what are the main people? The New Testament is harder to look at and do an overview because it's got so many doctrinal type things. But at the same time, you see man's fallen condition, but the righteousness and freedom. And you start to see key words that would make up Romans, or key words that would make up Corinthians and so forth. So I just wanted to show you that because I think that just having a good outline, even doing Bible studies with just an outline with the group, is a good idea. One thing I wanted to say was when I was working with junior high, believe it or not, I took the junior high kids through the book of Proverbs to know wisdom. I took them through that for a summer. And I think it was the best Bible study that I have ever done with any group in my life. The kids they ate it up. It's every proverb is like a mathematical equation. If you do this plus what, do you get this result? Or if you do, this is a result from doing what? And so we went through that. We diagrammed all the Proverbs. It was a wonderful study to know wisdom. And see, again, here's a practical application of a book of the Bible. Proverbs to know wisdom. Psalms to express your feelings and love or fear or praise to God. I mean, all of these books are amazing as we study them. So anyways, that's what I'm going to show you in outlines. Now we're going to move on from there. So what I wanted to show you next was the timeline. And then we're going to start setting up a desktop in accordance to really do quick overviews of summaries of different resources that have summaries on books of the Bible. But I wanted to draw your attention to the timeline real quick here, because this timeline is on sale, and it's if you don't have it, it's a wonderful thing. So if I'm here in the timeline, and you're going to see in the notes that you're going to get, you'll have the difference between conservative and critical. Yeah, I'm not going to go into it now. You can read the notes. Conservative, though, basically is when the book says that this happened and this person was ruling, it was in this year, they take it at that face value. Critical says, well, maybe let's hold on here because they're introducing some things here that happened later, possibly in time. So we're going to set a bit of a different date. And this is called a chronology, when things were written in the timeline of human history. but it's hard because no matter what timeline anybody comes up with, somebody's going to differ. So Accordance came up with two sort of broad strokes of timelines for people to be able to access and take a look at. But you see here, right here, if I want to go and look at David's life, I see David's life is sort of overlaps when the book of Judges were written, not when Judges happened, but when it was written. And I can actually click on David's life, and I can read about when they believe that his life was, and where he was mentioned the most. And I can actually click on this and open up a dictionary to David. So even though this is a timeline, it's fully interactive with my library. I can go here to the book of Judges. When was it written? And I can click on it and go right to information on Judges as well. Character of Judges, the rulers of Judges, the time, the period of the Judges, and so forth. So the timeline is really nice. Now, there's some neat things that you can do with the timeline. Now, I'm not David Lang and Mark Ellison, they're real proficient on the timeline. I tend to just get into the tool and use the tool I need for what I need. And I don't go into a bunch of all sorts of different things on it. But one thing that I might do with the timeline is I get down here, I can see that Moses lived here, and around, according to the conservative one, around, well, I can just click on his name, around 1526. And the Pentateuch, or the Torah, was written somewhere between 1446 and 1440. And so then we have the book of Joshua and then Ruth, and it's just nice to be able to see when they were written. And then, of course, as we get over here to the end of the timeline in this work, we see that we have all of the minor and major and minor prophets, and then, well, here's Jeremiah, and then we have the kings written, and now they're writing the history from what they saw. Samuel was written way back here, Ezra way up here. So in the timeline, so a timeline is very helpful to look at, to sort of get a picture of the chronology of when it was written and who was existing during that time. Obadiah was living, and Joaz and Micah and Uzziah and all these people, and the dynasties that were done in Egypt, and who was ruling in Egypt and so forth. Let's take a look though, while I'm here. I'm gonna bring this down just a bit, and maybe what I want to do is I'm going to just show you something. Let's take a look at the divided kingdom. What happened during the divided kingdom? What years did it take place? And so really, we have right at the end of Solomon's life, let me make that a little bit bigger, is when the kingdom splits. And so let's go ahead, and this is neat that you can do in the program. I can point to a year, I can hold my left mouse button down, and I can drag, and you see that blue line it's dragging? And I can drag to the end of the divided kingdom in this area, and I let go. Oops, got to do it again. Do it one more time. I didn't get it quite right. So let me go back over here, level it up here, and I'm going to highlight this. Now watch what happens when I let go. It actually produces a printout for me. So here we have the kingdom of Judah. They were subject to the Babylonians. And down here we have Israel, and they were subject to the Assyrians, and these are the dates that they were subject. And then after that, they got subjected because Babylonia took over. But then this also lists the kings of Israel, the kings of Judah. And so it's very helpful to be able to see that. Now, if I was to look at, I won't go into it, but we could also do that. If I highlighted the time of Judges, it would also produce a list of the judges and when they ruled too. Well, let me do that. Let me go ahead and do that because it's kind of interesting. So let me go back here and let's go all. And here we have the book of Judges. You can see right there. See that says Judges. And now I'm going to open this up, make it a little bit bigger for us to see. So let's see what happened during those 350 years in Judges. So I'm going to just highlight this and let go. And here we have, this is what these were the times, the cycles, the Armenian oppression, and then the Moabite oppression, and the northern oppression, the Midianite oppression, where they couldn't even get grain. I think that's when Gideon, finally got the harvest back for the people. And so you can see the things that brought oppression in the year. Then you can see the other books that were written during that time. And then you can see the judges that ruled during that time. And you can see what was going on in Egypt. I just think that is absolutely remarkable. And I think that timeline adds a lot to our understanding of the overview of the books. Okay, now let's get into actually looking at some overviews and how I might go about setting that up. So what kind of books within my library would have, we know that we've looked at the outlines and we've looked at the timeline, and you know, within accordance, if I have a book open, I can amplify to the timeline very quickly, so I can always use that. The outlines are always good to follow along. A lot of times when we get into the program, well, we're just, let's say we're in a Bible, and one thing that we always use a lot, we add a parallel, we add the info pane. A lot of people are familiar with this info pane, and the info pane's nice, and you can go through here and read it. And you want to add a commentary or study Bible, you click on it, it adds it. And so, and I can click off, but if in order to find, if I go back, if I start with Genesis, and I'm down here, now this is pretty good. It says the beginning God created, but that's a commentary. But I have to scroll way up to find information about Genesis, and that's not bad. I mean, but you do have to keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. I want to show you a better way than just opening it in the info pane window, and you'll see why I choose to do what I do the way I do it. So, but you could open it in the info pane window, but let's not do that. And then let's go back to the library. So what kind of books? Well, we know commentaries would work and study Bibles would work. Old and New Testament surveys would work. We have things like Rose's Bible book outlines. We'll take a look at that. So some individual books. I'm going to focus on just two categories primarily. We're going to delve into a couple others, but primarily I just want you to look at two. And this is good for setting up multiple types of desktops, or what we call workspaces, for all sorts of studies. So I'm going to open up my dictionaries, and I have actually created, you know how you have, I'm going to open this up so we can see it a little bit better and maybe expand this out. Okay, so you know in, I'm going to sort of use an analogy of an orchestra and a conductor. The conductor wants to have those that carry the tune, that have the best tune, that, you know, to lead for the rest of the group. Or if you're in a choir, you have, you know, first chair and second chairs, and that's in the, you know, people that have that they're just got a great sense of things. And but the conductor is still doing the conducting. So in order for me to set up this workspace for doing a overview, first of all, I want to choose who my conductor is going to be. Who's going to be there in the center, directing all the other books to go where I want them to go for my studies. I like this International Standard Bible Encyclopedia that we just gave away free last week. And if you didn't get it, let me know, and we'll make sure you get it for free. But it's old, it's 1915. But it covers 9,600 topics, and it's really a pretty good way to, a lot of experience there, and it's a good way for it to be able to handle the books of the Bible and other things that I want to look at, people of the Bible and so forth. So I'm going to have this to be my conductor. You'll notice too that in my dictionaries, I've arranged them where I've made the bigger dictionaries and encyclopedias, I put them at the top of my library. We have classes where you can create folder. I have specialized dictionaries that cover more specific things, prophecy and archaeology and imagery and so forth. But I've actually created a main, which these are more topically driven, and they cover a lot of topics. I'm going to actually move this one. To move them, you just click on it, drag it, and you can move it. And kind of like Joseph, you know, Joseph, they say was like cream. He he kept moving to the top. No matter what circumstance he found himself at, whether he was in prison or he was with Pharaoh, he always, his attitude, his intelligence, his demeanor, it always moved him to the top. And so just like a orchestral leader in all of your categories within your library, you'll hear me say this all the time, no matter what work you're in, commentaries, dictionaries, move your favorite, move the first, second, and third chairs up to the top, those that you use most often. Just drag them up to the top of the line and let them be, and just organize your library by putting your favorite works at the very top of each category. It's you'll find that it will aid you in your studies as you go. So I'm going to do one quick thing with this. You'll see that my next dictionary in line is the anchor. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the anchor. And I'm going to close this off for now. Let's take a look at just these two works. Are dictionaries good to do overviews? This is my question. Are dictionaries good to use to do overviews of books of the Bible? Well, let's take a look. So in order to have these side by side, all I have to do as I've opened them up is I just have to click on the tab, hold it, and move it to the side. And now I have the two side by side. Now, generally speaking, if I wanted to look for Genesis, I would type in Genesis and click OK. I'd come over here and type in Genesis, click OK. Now, this is not taking me to the book. It's talking about this Dead Sea Scroll. And so you'll notice that I always look at, whenever I open up something, how many hits are there? And either it's taking me to just general information, or it's taking me to some major topic on that word. So I really want to look at Anchor's book of Genesis. So I have to go down to the bottom and look at hits. And then now one hit down, I'm at the book of Genesis. So I can compare the two side by side. Let me show you a different way of being able to start to do more of that. So let me just close this out. Let me just say that I'm in a different thing altogether. Let's just go to a different word altogether. So I'm going to go to heaven. So let's say I'm in heaven here. I want to be able to start setting up my library so that my conductor will tell every other work what it's to be played and what it's to be doing. So I know that I've chosen the ISB to be my main conductor. Now, in accordance, there's all sorts of incredible ways to use one window or multiple windows, and all sorts of things. For instance, I'm in heaven here. If I click on and open up a space in the side, you'll see my next dictionary down. I wanted to show you this is the ISB Revised. So if I'm over here, you can set up accordance that all you do is use your right arrow key and hit your right arrow, and it goes to your next encyclopedia in line with the order that is found in your library. If I click here and hit my right arrow, it will go to my next dictionary on that topic. That's nice, and you can do that, but sometimes I want to look at people that I've watched study that have been very successful. They open up multiple books at once and they lay them on their tables, and then they start looking at each one and comparing them. Now this is good because I can look at one at a time, and I can highlight stuff, and I can save it one at a time. That's fine. But I want to just show you, in the time that we have, I want to just show you kind of what I do and why. So I'm going to go back here to, I'm going to hit there, and I'm going to go back to my Anchor, and I'm going to tell Anchor that the ISB is the conductor, and what ISB says and what ISB wants, and where ISB tells anybody else that they have to turn to, they have to follow. They have to become basically a servant and a follower of this conductor. He's directing, or she's directing where we're going. So what I'm going to do here is we have a thing called the link command. And I can go up here to search, and I can go down here to commands, and I can click on link. But a faster way to do it is just hit the letter L, and it says link. And right away, because I don't have any other works open, it will say ISB. Now you're going to see that as we go, it's going to be other things that it'll give you the option of what you want to link to. But right now I'm saying that wherever ISBE tells you to go, that's where you're to go. So now let's go back here and let's type in Exodus. And I hit enter, and look at that. Anchor now goes to Exodus. And I can now have to go down here in my hits. See, this is something about dictionaries. You have to go through things, but it's informative once you get down to what you want to look at. And then I'm down here and I can look at the title. I can look at the divisions, the place, integrity. There's a lot of stuff there. That's really more than I really wanted for getting a overview. It's very informative. It's very important to have, but it's a little bit more than I want. Let me go ahead and open up one more dictionary just to show you how that's done. So rather than going to my library, I can just hit the plus sign. I can go down to my dictionaries and I can go to my main, and let's open up the new Unger's dictionary. And so I have it in this tab here, that's fine. And how do I link it? I click on that entry form, I hit the letter L for link, and now it's going to ask which one do you want it to link to. Is the anchor the conductor? No, ISBE is the conductor. So I want to link to ISBE, and so it's linked to ISBE. So now wherever I go, let's go here to numbers. If I spell it right and hit enter, anchor goes to numbers and Unger's goes to numbers. And then again, I have to use my hit buttons to get down to when it talks about the book. Okay, that's good. Now let's take a look at something that the kind of reference materials that I think are very helpful in this case. So I'm going to go back to my library and I'm going to open up now. I could open up commentaries, but commentaries are just so filled with so much information. Again, I'm just looking to get an overview. So I'm going to go down and I'm going to open up my study Bibles. Here they are. I already have them open. And again, I drag my study Bibles up to the top. My favorite ones I put up at the top. And uh-oh. Where is it? Uh-oh. I have a study Bible missing. It's like a lost sheep. Let me go and find it. It should be at the top. Find out where I ended up putting it. I'm going to show that in my library. Oh, it got put down at the bottom somehow. So I'm going to drag that up to the top of my study Bibles. Woo, too far. Stop. Go down here, get my study Bible. I don't know how it got all the way to the bottom, but I got to be careful of my mouse because it travels too fast sometimes. There we go. There we go. There, put that on top. There we go. Now I got my study Bible. So let's go ahead and open up a study Bible. And I'm going to open that up in its own windows. It's sort of separate. Actually, I want it to be down below it here. Okay. So I have the ESV Study Bible, and this is the part that we have to start playing with to set up our workspace. Right now, a study Bible and commentary, every book has a character. Every book was created for different means or needs. And to find the character of a book, you use their address bar, and it tells you that a dictionary was created for topics. You could do English, you could look at scripture third, and it shows you the strength of that book to its, to the less strength of it. So if I go into a study Bible or a commentary, it shows me the strength of it was to be a reference work, a verse by verse study. But you know what? Because it has headings and titles, it can also be used as a topical book. And so I'm going to have to switch this from reference to topic because I want to study not the references of Genesis, but I want the background information that this book provides me on any book that I want to study. So I've turned it to title, and then I want it to be part of this orchestra. And this orchestra is being conducted by the ISBE. So I'm going to hit the L command. I'm going to say link, and I'm going to link it to ISBE. I'm going to say OK. Now you could do this in reverse order so you could have a study Bible and have the study Bible then be the driving orchestra leader to the dictionaries. I found that that doesn't work as well. So you can make it work, but I think this operates smoother. That's why I'm doing it this way. So now I have the ESV study Bible. So let's go and open up another book. Let's open up Judges. So look at that. That goes to Judges. This goes to Judges. Actually, I'm going to put all my dictionaries together in this tab. I want them all to be tabbed together so that we have more space here as we look through the stuff. And so I have here the ESV Introduction to Judges. And let's go ahead and put this side by side. Everybody, it just depends on which way you want to move your stuff around. But so we have the author and the date. You have the date of composition, and then look at this, the theme of Judges, a downward spiral of Israel's national and spiritual life into chaos and apostasy, showing the need for a godly king to lead it. And of course, I can open up a scripture and just follow right along with it. What was the purpose? And I then can go and look at all of my dictionaries. But now I have a new group of my study Bibles. So let's go ahead and open up another study Bible. So to do that, I'm just going to hit the plus sign. I'm going to go to my study Bibles, and let's open up the Orthodox Study Bible. Now what do? I click in here. Well, first I click in here. I turn it from reference to title because I want it to go right to the background information and not to the verse by verse. And I'm going to say link, and I'm going to have it linked to the conductor. And now let's go to another book. Let's go to which one do I want? Let's go to Proverbs. Oops, wrong book. See, I didn't do it in the right book. I have to make sure that this is the one leading it. So if I spell it right, that'd help too, wouldn't it? P-R-O-V-E. Get my fingers working. Proverbs. Enter. So here's the book of Proverbs. Here it is in Anchor. Here it is in Ungers. Here it is in the ESV. Author and date. Ooh, I just love this. And then down here it has the theme. And then I go to Oxford. Here's the author, the date, and the major theme. Wow. You know what I better start to do? I'm gonna go right back to Genesis and I'm going to start. Oops, got to go to ISB. I gotta always make sure I'm in that one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start a stack. I'm going to create a new stack, and I'm going to call it Book Overviews. And so there it is. So all I need to do is I can just highlight these themes since I'm in whoops, got to highlight it, and I can drag it up into the stack, and it should use that current stack. Was it not using the current stack? What stack am I saying? Oh, use this stack, Bible Overviews, and there it is. And then I can go to the ESV, and I can say, oh, yeah, where was that theme at? Down here, author, date. I can find, oh, it's even got genealogies. Here's the theme. Oh, that's a good theme. So I can hide it. If you want to, you can hold on a Mac, hold the Option, Command, and K, and it also puts it into your stack. So I can start collecting outlines on Genesis. I can go through here and collect my themes from my study Bibles. If there's something over here that I want from the dictionary, I can highlight that. Control or Option, Command K, it puts that in. So even if this stuff wasn't open, as you've heard from other workshops, this keeps a running total of everything. The nice thing about this is if I'm doing a paper or if I'm writing something for a professor, I can copy that to my clipboard. I can go into my word processor. So if I go through Genesis, I could put together a lot, probably 3 pages if I wanted to, but I could put together a nice overview of Genesis in just 5 minutes. And then I can go back and grab from my stack and paste, and it'll come in and it footnotes it at the bottom. I just love that so much. And so that's what you can do with stacks, and you just go to which one you want and you hit the copy button, and then you go to your word processor, and then you just find out where you want to paste it. Whoops, I hate this, my mouse, there we go. And I paste it, and it comes in and it footnotes it and puts it down there too. Nice, very nice. Okay, so I could go through here and I could get a variety of study Bibles all set up in parallel, so that I can just go through it. And the thing that I like about, let's do one more study Bible. So I'm going to go through here and I'm going to get another study Bible. They're all good. You know, I have the life application, the thematic, archaeological, MacArthur. These are the ones I found to be the best. And I put that in the handout you're getting, those study Bibles that have the best for themes. I put that in the notes that you'll be receiving. But let's open up life application. And I'm going to click in there, turn it to title, hit link it to ISB, say OK. And now if I go back to ISB, and let's look at the book of Acts, and I hit enter. Well, this is taking me to Acts, and I've got to go down. Remember, you got to hit down to find what you want to look at. Acts of Solomon, Apocryphal Acts, Acts of Paul, Peter. That's quite a bit. It's giving me a lot of stuff on Acts. So you see, this is why sometimes dictionaries, they have so many things that might have that title that you have to go through before you really get to what you want. But you can, and it's good. This didn't have anything. Oh, I didn't set this up, did I? Need to link that to ISB as well. But over here, we have Acts of the Wicked, reading the Gospels and Acts, and then we have the John Drennan goes into it, and then Matthew, and then we get into the book of Acts. And then, of course, we'll get the author, the date, and the theme. Life application takes me to Acts, so I have to go down to find the book of Acts. I like this. Here's a picture of it, what's been going on, and then look what the life application does. Not only does it give me the purpose and the date written and the key verse, the key people. This is also really good. To get study Bibles that give you the key people, the key places, the key features that are happening. Here, most study Bibles also give you an outline, a little bit different outline, but they all give you a bit of an outline of what to look for. Again, that's a summary. And then look at the themes that the life application does. Explanation, church begins, the importance, the Holy Spirit, church growth, witnessing, opposition, and so forth, key places in Acts. That's all. Normally, if you were to open this again in your as a info pane, you would just go right to the commentary on Acts 1:1. But it's nice that you can use it as a title and find a lot more information. Let's go to the Orthodox and see what it has to say on it. So I can get down here and I can use the hit button and the book of Acts. Here's my major theme. I highlight that theme. I either can drag it up to the stack and drop it off, or I can hit the option command K key and it will put it into my stack. So I can start collecting themes. So that's kind of how those work. A couple other works that I want to draw your attention to in your library. One is the Rose. The Rose that you can get is the Rose Bible Overview. And again, I can link it, but I can just say Genesis. And you'll see what it does. It destroys the purpose and where the name came from in Greek, the timeline of it. So it has a timeline. And then it has an outline, which is really nice. And and then sort of background information and settings and an overview. It's just a very quick overview of every book in the Bible, the Rose Bible Overview. Other works that are good, I think I have them listed in my user tool. Let me just get to, this is what you're going to be getting. So at the very end, you're going to see these are the study Bibles I recommend, the dictionaries I recommend, the outline, and the outline. Some people like the Message translation, some people don't. But the one thing that the Message does provide is a wonderful outline of the books of the Bible, different than the one that comes free. I do like the way the Message puts a lot of its outlines together. A must is the Accordance timeline. The Holman charts and maps are good. And then you have some things that Wilmington talks about, the chronological model or method. And out of a commentary, commentaries are so big, but the Believer's Bible commentary is really good. And so these are some works that I recommend that you get. What I tried to do is to, if you're looking at a book of the Bible, what is going to be the main thing you're going to remember about it? A lot of times people say, well, Genesis shows God's faithfulness and goodness. He creates the world, and then sin comes into the world, but God is bigger than that, and he's good. Okay, so what's Exodus about? Well, Exodus is about the power of God and that he can turn evil for good. Okay, what's Leviticus about? Leviticus is about how big God is, and God is good, and man is not good. Well, that's you can say that about all these books of the Bible, but I want specifics. Oh, what if someone had never heard of Hosea? What did God use as an object lesson in Hosea to talk about the people's idolatry? What did God use in Jeremiah as an object lesson? What did God use as an object lesson in Ezekiel and the bones? What did God do with Daniel and visions and dreams? I mean, every book has a unique object lesson in it from God, or a word focus. So, you know, that's what, when we look at the scriptures, those are the things that I really would like people to focus in on. What are the major underlying object lessons that God was using to get his point across? And what were the events? What were the stories? Who were the people? How did God do it? How did God work in Esther? And who are the key people in the book of Esther? Why did God use Ruth and the Kingsman Redeemer? And yeah, God's not mentioned in Ruth, but what does it show about faithfulness compared to what was happening in Judges with all the unfaithfulness and lack of commitment and lack of faithfulness? So it's you know, what would you tell the people about those books? Last, I wanted to show you this. Within my, so I hope this makes sense to you, but before I finish this off, let's say that this is something I want to save. So what I would do is, if this is a workspace that has, I just can do this too, I can link this, and then say link command, oops, link command, and I'm going to link that to my ISB. So now if I'm at my ISB, and I might just open my ISB up separately, just so that I don't get confused. Now, anything I type in ISB, in this example, so Job, by the way, it's interesting when you look at like the writings of Solomon. When did he write Song of Songs or Solomon or Proverbs or Ecclesiastes? At what age in his life did he write them? And you sort of see that when he was young and marriage was in, and love was in full bloom, that's when a lot of, traditionally he wrote Song of Solomon's, but that's not where it falls in the line of scriptures. Or when middle age with understanding wisdom, Proverbs, and then old age, Ecclesiastes, with life is meaningless. And so, but anyway, so again, it's just sort of fun to look at who wrote and what they wrote and when it was written and what stage in their life it was written maybe. But here we have Job in the ISB, and Anchor goes to Job, Unger goes to Job, Rose goes to Job, Study Bible here goes to Job, ESV goes to Job, Life Application goes to Job, Orthodox. So you can start to set up a really quick workspace with all your favorite works to do a quick overview of each of these books in the Bible. And then you might want to save that workspace. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to say add this as a workspace, and I'm going to call it Bible Books Overview. And I'm going to say, okay, save. And now it's saved. The neat thing about Accordance is that I'm going to close that out, and I'm going to reopen up a new workspace. And let's say that I am in um, um, I'm in Judges, and I want to get some information on something. All I have to do is right click, and then I can do a search for that through that workspace I just opened. So I can go down to Bible Book Overview. Now it's going to open up that workspace, and everything will be set to Judges or to Judge or Judging. You see, so you can, once you have a workspace open with your favorite works, you can amplify to everything in that from another workspace, as long as you have your links all set up correctly. I just think that's sort of neat that you can do that. Okay, last thing I wanted to show you from the user tool is that another thing that we might want to do is, and this is nice within Accordance, is that showed you how to use the link command, saving. You can do a quick study of Judges or of the books of the Bible by using the research. So to do that, I wanted to show you that real quick. I go up here, I type in the book. I select what the English is, and I'm going to select just my study Bibles, and I perform the search. Now, what I have here is I always want to look at the titles, not the text. Titles or entry are what you want to look for. So as I'm here, it says Introduction to Genesis. I open that up in its own window, and there's my author and date and everything on Genesis. I can copy and paste that. I have all of that. Let's go down to the Orthodox Study Bible. Click on that, open that up. It takes me right to author, date, theme, and so forth, and the outline. This is the way that I use to compare all my study Bibles to come up with the list I liked. I looked at Life Application. I went to Open. And the nice thing about doing it this way from the research panel is that you can go, you don't have to look at all, hit down, hit down, hit down. You can get right to what you want to look at. I can go into the NIV Study Bible. I want to get down here to Introduction to Genesis. Open that right up. Go down here to the Archaeological or Thematic Study Bible. Go down here to the Book of Genesis. Open that up. Oh, that's not what I want. I think it's this one right here. No, that's not it either. It must be there. And then you can go down here to the archaeological. So you can sort of see how you can use this and then quickly look at all of these study Bibles if you really want to go fast. Holman Study Bible is also very good. Open that up. First book, get all my information. Really good for overview. And you can try this with commentaries, but I'm telling you it works best with study Bibles. So anyway, that's to do it with the research pane, and I just wanted to show you that. And then last, the neat thing with the Accordance is that you can have access to internet windows. So if I'm in here, I can use, I put onto the PDF, but if you get the file from Linda, you'll have access to this user tool. And then one of my favorite things is this, it's called the Bible Project. And here are the books of the Old Testament. And you can just click on it and it'll do a video, a couple-minute video of an overview of that particular book. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open that up in its own window so that we can sort of see it a little bit better. And I click on it, and then it plays this video on Genesis. And I don't know if you will be able to hear it or not, but it's
God brings out of it order, beauty, goodness. He makes a world where life is. And God makes these.
So you have that. You have one thing that Linda showed me was that Dr. David Jeremiah has an overview of the entire Bible in 5 minutes.
In Genesis,
and so you can go through that. Ligonier has materials. There's a thing called an overview of the Bible in the 66 Bible overview, and again, it's a video. So the neat thing within Accordance is that even though I'm on, here's Genesis, and here's the information. I can, at any time, remember, I can right click on that, and I can say, I want to amplify that to my workspaces. And I can go right away to my Bible book. Even though I'm on the internet, it will open up my workspace that I had just created to Bible books right from here. If I go to Exodus and I right click on that, I can go to that workspace and it will open up the workspace to Exodus. And so anyway, I created links here for you that you can use to also look at overviews of each book within the Hebrew Bible or the New Testament. That will hopefully be helpful for you. And I hope that you'll be excited about studying and engaged in the studying. Just watch for all those wonderful gems in each book and what God is showing you, so that in that book, that key person, that key story, that key event that will stay in your memory and that you'll be able to use to tell others about. So I think, Linda, that's about all I have to share at this point. Again, I just thank you all for your time today, and I hope that this was helpful. Again, it was very basic, but I certainly enjoyed and grateful that you attended this webinar today. Mark, Linda, do you have anything?
Yeah, thank you, Richard. That was great. And we do have a few questions here. First of all, let's see. One question is, I hope, Richard, that you'll explain why linking study Bibles to a dictionary is more helpful than simply opening the study Bible and getting the overview, date, themes, and everything straight from the study Bible. In other words, what's the advantage of including a dictionary?
Well, the dictionary I wanted to use to lead. Now, you can open up a study Bible directly. So let me just go to a new workspace. Let me close this out. Let's just get a new workspace open. So I can just go right to a study Bible, and I can go to a book of the Bible. See, I don't want reference. See, that's the first thing I have to, no matter what, you're gonna have to change it from reference to title. So if I'm back here and we go into Psalms, now I can get to Psalms, and some study Bibles like the Orthodox goes right to a beginning. You don't have to be, scrolling up or down to find information. Some you have to, like I showed you, you have to do that with. Now I could have this so that it would link or power my dictionary, but I found that occasionally it was okay if I was just using 2 reference works at a time, but the more reference works I got, my study Bibles, they just didn't like the other study Bible directing it. I don't know why. You can play with it, but I found that really opening up a dictionary to be the orchestra leader for some reason did better, because it was actually created to be a topical book, whereas study Bibles were really created to be reference works. And for some reason, it worked better having a topical book tell the other books how to get in line with the topic you're studying or the book you're studying. They may not answer it. My encouragement is to try different things, explore on your own, see what works best for you. But yeah, I went both ways, but for me, after playing with it for a while, I really liked having the dictionary be the driving force.
All right, thank you. Let's see, another question here. Do you have any recommended presentation tools for Accordance users?
Like what, per se? Let me tell you what, one thing that I like to do, so if I'm going to go back here, I'm going to open up, how come I don't have it up here? By the way, folks, one thing that we have mentioned before is that we have a bunch of tutorials to show you how to use the program. that's also something I need to mention in every podcast or every webinar. But where is I'm going to customize my toolbar. And I'm going to bring up this web browser button, put that there. So I don't per se have anything that I do, but I can tell you this. So let's say I'm in my web browser, and I'm going to open this up full. And let's say that I want a PowerPoint design on Acts. Okay. All I do is type in Book of Acts PowerPoint, PPT, and I hit enter. And what it does is it comes back with a group of items that I can just sort of go through and see how it would look and take a look at these PowerPoints and see if there's anything that I want. And then I can download them and I can rearrange them. But really, at this point, you can do this within Accordance, is just do a search for that book and type in PPT to get a presentation of that book. You can do let's try this. How about Old Testament timeline, Old Testament books, and I'm going to put PPT. If I take off that. So now you can do a history again, and you can find presentations. I use this a lot to be able to go through and find materials, and then you can adapt them and change it to a presentation that you want. So again, you can do that right from within Accordance. Do a search, open up your web browser and search for a book of the Bible and a PPT to get a PowerPoint image of it.
Great. Final question that a lot of people have been asking. They've been looking at the PDF that the Bible Books Overview PDF you provided, but several users would like that in a user tool format as well. Would that be possible for you to provide? Maybe send it out as a link?
Linda has it. She'll be sending that out to everyone. And all you'll have to do is double click on it when you get it, and it will automatically install itself as a user tool. Now, the only thing to remember about it is that at the very top of it, I have some linking, and this linking only works if you have the Holman charts. It only works if you have the Orthodox. So if you don't have those, it will be just a dead link. But yeah, she will be sending out this as a user tool and as an attachment later today to everyone.
Thank you, Richard. That's been really helpful. I think that's all the questions, and we've had a lot of really good comments on this too. So thank you very much. And I guess I'll turn it back over to Linda.
Okay.
Did Richard address the question about people asking for the free ISB?
You know what? No, I didn't. But if you did not get the ISB, again, it's a wonderful work. I will get with the salespeople today and have them make it available for free again starting tomorrow. It takes about 24 hours for it to get through the process. Everyone at the office, we're open, but they're all working from home. And so I have to get 2 people from 2 different locations to put it back on. But we'll put the ISB back on for free in a cart. Just go to the cart, put the ISB, it'll show $0, and then just download it.